This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this episode of Engage the Sage. This week we're going to talk about using your announcements as a teaching tool in class. I use daily announcements in my classes, and chances are you do too. It's a great way to get information out to our students. Earlier in my career, though, I didn't do them with a whole lot of thought or intention, and it was over the course of my career that I decided I could make better use of these than I had been. My class time is valuable. Your class time is valuable. So if I'm going to do something in class, I want to make sure it's worthwhile. And my announcements are no different. I want to make sure that I'm using my announcements as something effective moving forward the teaching goals of my class. Daily announcements, I think, really provide us a nice time-efficient practice because if I let my students know that information for just a couple of minutes at the beginning of every class, it's going to save me time later of having to answer students' questions about information upcoming, general course policies, assignments, and all of those things. So what I've done is I've gotten out in front of this and done so in a way that allows my students to better succeed. I like daily announcements. Oftentimes, the daily announcements that I can give is going to overlap with content that I've already provided in the syllabus. I don't think having my announcements overlap with the syllabus is a bad thing. I think it's important for us as teachers to point our students to the syllabus and remind them what a valuable resource that is for them. My announcements don't replace my syllabus. More often than not, what my announcements do is point my students in the direction for where they can get more information. And my announcements are set up so my students are not surprised. As a student, I didn't like when things surprised me. I didn't like when suddenly there was an exam or suddenly there was a deadline approaching. I liked when my teachers gave me a little bit of warning, and I tried to do the same for my students. By cueing my students about the stuff that's upcoming, one of the things this does for me is it lets me know for myself that I'm doing what I can to help my students succeed. I'm not trying to trick them. I'm not trying to surprise them. I'm trying to let them know that I care about your performance. I look forward to your assignments. I want you to do well in the exam, and that's why I'm giving you this information. So now what they can do, I hope, is spend their time excelling on those things. I take a proactive approach to my announcements. I think about the information that I want my students to have. I think about when I want them to have it, and then I try to give it to them in a way that's going to be valuable for them. I use my daily announcements in my class to satisfy 3 goals. The first goal I try to achieve with my daily announcements is to get my students general course information. This might be reminding them at the beginning of a semester of a late policy, an attendance policy, a research credit participation policy that my department might have, all of those kind of things that are going to be important throughout the course. This may also include grading policies. This may include policies about their electronic use in my classroom, any of those kind of things that is going to be chronically useful for them. Be with me. Now, if you need to step out for something, that's fine. If you know, I've got kids in childcare and stuff like that, I'm going to have my phone with me because sometimes doctor calls, you got to pick up, right? If you're in a situation like that, just let us know. All right? So let me know, you know what, I got kids in childcare, I got this situation going on, I need to have my phone out. I might get a quick text, I might have to reply just to let me know that. And our office hours are by appointment. That does not mean I don't want you to come by. What that means is that I've found, and maybe you're the students like this, is that students don't know when office hours are, number 1. And number 2, don't really care about office hours unless they fit their schedule. More often than not, students will say, I'm free at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, are you free? That's the email you can send me. All right? So if you want an appointment, ask me before class, after class to set up a time. Send me an email to set up a time. I do want to hear your feedback. I do want to help you. I do want to be successful in this class. My not putting office hours on here doesn't mean that I don't want you to come by. It just means that I cannot find that perfect time that works for all of you. Just let me know that you need to talk and we can talk. Sometimes my daily announcements are going to be inspired by me wanting to remind my students about certain things. So reminding them about the policy that I'd prefer you not pack up before the end of class, or maybe that you stay on task with your electronics. The second goal I try to achieve with my daily announcements is to let them know about important upcoming events in my class. I'll usually start the announcements about an upcoming event several weeks prior to the event happening. I want my students to know that I want them to do well, and I want my students to know that I'm trying to give them a cue that it's about time that you started thinking about these kinds of things. This might be an upcoming exam, an upcoming assignment, an upcoming paper, a deadline for research participation, or something like that. On that same note, in about 4 weeks, you have your next exam. So you can start looking forward to that one. Before we talk about that, my first announcement is Wow, it is coming up in 2 weeks. What do we have? Yeah, the next exam. Our first announcement, 1 week from this coming Thursday. Damn. How many? I can let my students know important things about the upcoming events. For instance, I can let my students know the structure of my exam. I can let my students know how much of the exam might come from the readings or the textbooks in the class and how much might come from the lecture material that we've covered together. I want my students to succeed. If letting them know that my exam is going to have essay questions on it and not just be multiple choice is going to help them, then I definitely want them to have that information. So it's going to have 4 sections. The first section is going to be multiple choice. The second section is going to be matching. And that fun thing about the matching is there's extra stuff, right? So what'll happen is you'll have 10 items maybe, but maybe 18 responses to match to them. Then the third section is short answer. The interesting thing about short answer is
you don't have to do full sentences. No full sentences.
I'm sorry, what?
No full sentences.
No, I don't want full sentence. I want a word or phrase, absolutely. But you get to pick, right? Read the instructions and be a couple that we're not going to grade. You get to tell us which one's not to grade. And then longer answer, same kind of deal. Read the instructions. There might be 1 or 2 we're going to say, hey, you get to decide which ones we're not going to grade. I like lists, I like examples, I like compare, contrast, and things like that. But your longer answers are going to be about this long. They're not going to be full-on essays. All right. If giving my students an overview of common mistakes that I've seen on those assignments in the past is going to help them this year, then I definitely want to provide them with that information too. These also provide me the opportunity to let my students ask me questions that they might be having about the upcoming exams or the upcoming assignments. So that communication is important. The third goal that I want to accomplish with my daily announcements, and this is my favorite, is I want to get my students ready to engage in my class that day. I want my students to see my excitement about the class, and I want my students to have the opportunity to share their excitement with me. I want to use Mad Lib style announcements, something we've done in a previous video, where I ask them questions about the information and they answer my questions. And after I've made the announcement a couple of times, when we do this kind of call and response announcements, this Mad Lib style announcements, now they're actually making the announcements. They're sharing with me the information about what's upcoming. So what my announcements have actually become is an activity. My students and I are now having an engaged conversation about course relevant material right at the start of class every single day. I find that I get inspired when I ask my students in a general psychology class a question about what's coming up and 200 people answer me at once. Very, very nice. All right, so first announcement. Test when? Next Thursday, 1 week from today, we have our third exam in this class. Yay, opportunity to earn points. Are you excited? Yes. Yeah. How many questions on that thing? 50. How many coming from lecture? 40. How many coming from the textbook? 10. Where is the textbook? On Canvas. And where can you find what you need to read? Or what I'm recommending that you read before that? Also on Canvas. Very, very nice. Because we make choices to be here, right? We make choices to study. And all of that means if we're making those choices and we see some inherent value in there, what kind of motivation is it? Intrinsic. Excellent. More on motivation in a second. If you have last name from L to Z, what is also due at the beginning of class next week as an upload to Canvas? Study guide assignment. Excellent. And then my final announcement, as usual, is your research credits. How many of you have 5 or more research credits? We hope the clips you've seen from my classes demonstrate how easy it is to make your daily announcements a really effective teaching tool. Your daily announcements can be a really easy way to get out general information about your course, let their students know information about upcoming events, and to engage them for class. Let us know in the comments below how you use your daily announcements to engage your class. Thank you for joining us on Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, and share on social media. We'll see you next time.